Waitress serves Stephen Curry, and when she sees the bill, she breaks down in tears. She was just a regular waitress at a small diner in the middle of San Francisco. The kind of place where the coffee was always hot, the pancakes were always fluffy, and everyone knew your name by the second visit. Her name was Jessica, but most people just called her Jess. She had been working there for 3 years, ever since she moved out on her own. Life hadn't been easy. Student debt, broken relationships, and more than a few nights spent crying in the break room after a long shift. But Jess stayed strong. She smiled through the hard days, laughed with the regulars, and always made sure every customer left feeling seen. Some came in just to talk. Others came because they said her smile could light up the whole block. She didn't know if that was true, but it felt good to hear. One rainy afternoon, the bell above the door chimed like usual. A group of 4 walked in, shaking off umbrellas and jackets. They looked like any other group of friends grabbing lunch before heading back to work. Jess grabbed her notepad and gave them her usual warm greeting. She didn't recognize any of them at first. It wasn't until the last man stepped inside that something clicked. He was tall, wearing a black hoodie, sunglasses, and a quiet confidence that filled the room without him saying a word. It was Stephen Curry. Jess froze for just a second, not because he was famous, though of course he was, but because he looked so normal, like someone you'd see walking his dog or picking up groceries. But then again, maybe that was the point. She quickly shook off the surprise and welcomed them with a smile. "Hey there, welcome to Daisy's Diner. Can I get y'all some drinks to start?" They all ordered water, except one guy who asked for sweet tea. Jess nodded, wrote it down, and walked back behind the counter. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. She poured their waters, brought them over, and took their food orders. Curry got a stack of pancakes, scrambled eggs, and bacon, simple, classic comfort food. The others went for burgers and fries. Jess gave them a nod and handed the tickets to the kitchen. As she waited for the food to come out, she kept herself busy wiping tables and checking on other customers. But every now and then, she caught herself glancing over at the table in the corner. She couldn't help it. Stephen Curry, the 2-time MVP, NBA champion, and global icon, was sitting in her diner, eating her pancakes. When the food was ready, Jess brought it over with a smile. "Here we go. Let me know if you need anything else." Curry looked up and said, "Thanks, Jess." Just like that. He remembered her name. She blinked. "You're welcome." He smiled again and started eating. The group talked quietly, laughing here and there. Jess watched from a distance, trying not to stare too much, but still in awe. After about 20 minutes, Curry raised his hand slightly and waved her over. "Hey, can we get the check?" Jess nodded. "Sure thing." She walked over, pulled out her little book, and handed them each a slip. 4 checks, one for each person. Standard practice. Curry looked at his, nodded, and reached into his wallet. Then something strange happened. He handed her a single piece of paper instead of cash or a card. Jess took it, confused. She unfolded it carefully, and that's when she saw it. A short note, written in neat handwriting. "Jess, keep doing what you're doing. You have no idea how many lives you touch. Don't ever stop smiling. S.C." Underneath it there was also a folded-up check. She opened it slowly. Her eyes widened. It was written out to her. The amount? $10,000. $10,000. Jess stood there, frozen. Her hands began to shake. She blinked back tears, unsure if she was dreaming or not. Curry looked up at her. His eyes were soft, kind. "You deserve it," he said simply. Then he stood up, put his hoodie back on, and patted her shoulder gently. "Take care, Jess." And just like that, he and his friends walked out the door. The rain outside picked up again. Inside the diner, everything was quiet. Jess stood there, holding the note and the check, tears streaming down her face. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know what to do. All she knew was that one moment, one small act of kindness from someone she thought was untouchable, had changed her life forever. Jess stood there for a moment, the paper shaking in her hands. The other customers had gone back to their meals, unaware of what just happened. But Jess felt like the world had stopped spinning. She looked down at the note again. Keep doing what you're doing. That was it. Just a few lines, nothing long or dramatic, but somehow those words hit harder than anything she'd ever read. She folded the note carefully and tucked it into her apron pocket, like it was something sacred. Then she looked at the check. $10,000. She had never held that much money in her life. Not even close. Her manager, Mike, walked over, wiping his hands on a towel. Hey, everything okay over here? Jess nodded, but her voice cracked when she tried to speak. Yeah, I think so. He gave her a confused look. You sure? You look like you've seen a ghost. Jess let out a shaky laugh. Something like that. She walked behind the counter and sat down on a stool, still holding the check. Her legs felt weak. Her heart was pounding. She stared at the check like if she blinked too hard, it might disappear. $10,000. That was student loans gone. That was months of rent paid. That was groceries, car repairs, maybe even a vacation someday. It was freedom. And it came from Stephen Curry, of all people. She thought about how many times she had watched him play on TV, cheering him on during Warriors games. How he always seemed like such a good guy, humble, kind, always giving credit to others. And now, here he was, sitting in her diner, handing her a gift that changed everything. She remembered the way he said her name, not like a celebrity, not like someone who was above anyone else, just a normal person, a regular guy having breakfast. But no one that generous was ever just a regular guy. Mike leaned against the counter. You okay, Jess? You're white as a ghost. Jess finally found her voice. I'm fine, she whispered. Just give me a second. He nodded slowly and walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She pulled out the note again and read it one more time. Jess, keep doing what you're doing. You have no idea how many lives you touch. Don't ever stop smiling. SC. She didn't know what made her cry harder, the money, the note, or the fact that someone like him noticed her at all. She had been working at the diner for 3 years. She'd served hundreds of people. Some were kind, others were rude. Some left big tips, others barely glanced at her. Most just came and went without a word. But this was different. It wasn't just about the money. It was about being seen, being appreciated, being reminded that even in the messiest parts of life, kindness still mattered. Jess wiped her tears with the back of her hand and took a deep breath. She folded the note again and put it back in her pocket. Then she stood up, adjusted her apron, and walked back out onto the floor. There were still tables to clean, orders to take, and coffee to pour. Life didn't stop just because one customer changed hers, but something inside her had shifted. She smiled at an older couple waving her over. Be right there. She refilled a glass of water for a man reading the newspaper. Thanks, hon, he said. She laughed with a teenage girl who spilled syrup on her shirt. Don't worry, happens all the time. Everything felt lighter now, like the weight she'd been carrying for years had suddenly gotten a little easier to bear. At the end of her shift, Jess clocked out and walked outside. The rain had stopped, the sky was dark, but the city lights flickered like stars. She pulled out the note again and read it one last time. Keep doing what you're doing. She smiled. I will, she whispered, and with that, she walked home, clutching the piece of paper like it was a promise that better days were coming. Jess didn't tell anyone what happened that day. Not at first. She folded the check and kept it in a small envelope inside her backpack, like it was something fragile that might break if she handled it too much. She went to sleep that night with the note tucked under her pillow, staring at the ceiling for hours, replaying every second in her head. How had he known? How had Stephen Curry, of all people, seen something in her, something worth recognizing? She wasn't special, she wasn't famous, she wasn't even sure she was good at her job most days. Some mornings, she barely made it through without crying. Some nights, she went home feeling invisible, but he saw her, and he did something about it. The next morning, Jess got up early and walked into work like normal. The rain had cleared up, leaving behind a fresh, clean smell in the air. She pushed open the diner door, greeted Mike with a smile, and tied on her apron. Feeling better today? Mike asked as he wiped down the grill. Jess nodded. Yeah, much better. He gave her a knowing look but didn't press further. He knew when not to ask questions. The day passed like any other. Customers came and went. Jess took orders, served food, cleaned tables, and smiled through the exhaustion. But something was different. She felt lighter, more confident, like she was walking on a path she hadn't noticed before. It wasn't until later that afternoon, when a man in a suit walked into the diner, that things started to change again. He looked out of place. Everyone else was wearing jeans and hoodies. He had on dress shoes and a crisp button-down shirt. He scanned the room, then walked straight toward Jess. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Are you Jessica?" Jess blinked. "Yes." He smiled. "My name is Daniel. I'm a producer with a local news station. We heard about what happened yesterday." Jess's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Daniel pulled out his phone and showed her a video. It was from a security camera outside the diner. You could see Stephen Curry walking in, ordering food, and later handing Jess something before he left. "We've been trying to confirm the story," Daniel said. "Is it true? Did Stephen Curry give you $10,000? Jess didn't know what to say. She looked around the diner, hoping someone would save her from this moment. Mike was watching from behind the counter. He gave her a small nod, like he already knew this was coming. Jess took a deep breath. "Yes," she said quietly. "It's true." Daniel's eyes lit up. "Would you be willing to talk about it on camera? Just a quick interview? People want to hear your side." Jess hesitated. She wasn't looking for attention. She never wanted this to become a big deal. What happened between her and Curry was personal, private, but then she thought about what he wrote in the note. "Keep doing what you're doing. You have no idea how many lives you touch." Maybe this was part of that. Maybe sharing her story could help someone else. She nodded slowly. "Okay, but just a short one." Daniel smiled. "Of course." Later that evening, after her shift ended, Jess stood outside the diner with a microphone in her hand and a camera pointed at her face. She told the story. She talked about how hard life had been, how she worked long hours, struggled with debt, and sometimes felt like giving up, how she tried to stay kind, even when it hurt, and how one customer, one simple act of kindness, changed everything. When she finished, the reporter thanked her, packed up the equipment, and left. Jess watched them go, unsure of what would happen next. She didn't expect much, just another local news segment. A few people might watch, maybe a few shares online, then life would go back to normal. But that's not what happened. By the next morning, her phone was blowing up. Texts, calls, social media messages. People were talking about her. Videos of the interview had gone viral. Comments flooded in from all over the world. "This is why we need more kindness. Stephen Curry is a legend on and off the court. Jess, you deserve every bit of this. Keep going." One message caught her eye. It was from a woman named Sarah. "Hey Jess, I used to work at a diner too. Life knocked me down so many times I almost quit, but I kept going. Eventually, I opened my own coffee shop. If you ever want to talk, or need help getting started, let me know. You've got something special, Sarah." Another message came in from a student who said they were inspired to keep pushing through school because of her story, and another from a single mom working 2 jobs, saying Jess reminded her that kindness still exists. Jess read each message carefully, tears welling up in her eyes again. She wasn't just telling her story anymore. She was helping others feel seen too. Jess didn't sleep much that night. Her phone kept buzzing with messages, and even when it was quiet, her mind wouldn't stop racing. She stared at the ceiling, replaying everything again and again. The pancakes, the note, the check, the reporter, the viral video, the messages from strangers who suddenly felt like friends. It was all too much. She had never asked for any of this. She just wanted to do her job, pay her bills, and maybe one day get out of the diner and into something better. But now people were watching, and she wasn't sure how to feel about that. The next morning, Jess got ready for work like normal. She tied her hair back, slipped on her apron, and walked into the diner, expecting another slow Tuesday. She was wrong. As soon as she pushed open the door, Mike waved her over. "You've got company." Jess followed his gaze and saw two people sitting in a booth near the front. One was a woman in a blazer, typing on a laptop. The other was a man holding a camera. Another interview. Jess groaned. Mike gave her a half smile. Looks like you're famous. Jess sighed but forced herself to walk over. The woman looked up and smiled warmly. Jessica, I'm Megan with Good Morning America. We'd love to have you on the show tomorrow morning. If you're interested. Jess blinked. Tomorrow. Megan nodded. We know it's short notice, but we think your story deserves a bigger audience. Jess didn't know what to say. She looked at Mike, who gave her a thumbs up. Then she looked outside and saw a small group of people standing near the entrance, phones raised, waiting for her. Jess swallowed hard. This wasn't just a moment anymore, it was a movement, and she was right in the middle of it. She took a deep breath. Okay, I'll do it. Megan beamed. Great, we'll send a car for you at 5 a.m. Jess nodded numbly as they packed up their gear and left. Then she turned to Mike. I have no idea what I'm doing. Mike chuckled. You'll be fine. Just tell your story. That's all you need to do. Jess tried to focus on work after that, but her head was spinning. Every time she looked down at her apron, she remembered the note tucked inside her pocket. Keep doing what you're doing. She was trying, but now everyone else was watching. That night, she barely slept. A car picked her up early the next morning and drove her to the studio. She met the crew, got mic'd up and sat in a chair under bright lights. Before she knew it, the camera was rolling. A voice said, "We're live in 5, 4. Jess gripped the edge of her seat. 3, 2. She took a deep breath. 1. The host smiled at her. Good morning, America. Today we have a very special guest, a young woman whose story has touched hearts across the country. Jess forced a smile and nodded. The host continued, Tell us, Jessica, what happened when Stephen Curry walked into your diner? Jess opened her mouth, and the words came out before she could stop them. She told the whole story, from the rain to the pancakes to the note and the check. She talked about the reporter, the viral interview, and the messages from people who said her story changed something in them. She even read part of Curry's note aloud. When she finished, the host wiped her eye and said, Wow, that is beautiful and powerful. Jess nodded, still nervous. Then the host asked, What's next for you, Jess? Jess hesitated. Honestly, I don't know. I just want to keep working, keep helping people, and maybe one day use this chance to build something better for myself. The host smiled. I think you already are. The segment ended with a round of applause from the studio audience. Jess stood up, thanked everyone, and walked off set. As she stepped outside, the sun was rising. She looked up at the sky and smiled. Maybe this was the start of something new. Jess didn't expect much to change after the TV interview. She thought maybe a few more people would recognize her name, or someone might leave a bigger tip at the diner. But that was it. She was wrong. The next morning, she woke up to over 1,000 new messages in her inbox. Her phone buzzed constantly. People from all over the world were reaching out, some just to say they were inspired, others offering help. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Elena, who owned a small cafe in New York. She wrote, Jess, I used to waitress too. I know how hard it is. If you ever want to learn how to run your own place, I'd be honored to show you the ropes. You've got heart, and that's worth more than money. Elena. Jess read the message twice, then smiled. Maybe this was the universe giving her a push. She replied right away. Over the next few days, Jess kept working at the diner, but things had changed. Customers recognized her now. Some asked for photos, others left big tips and notes saying, keep going. Even Mike started teasing her. You're a celebrity now, he said one afternoon, while flipping pancakes. Jess rolled her eyes. I'm still just me. Mike grinned. Yeah, but now everyone else knows that too. Then came the call that changed everything. It was from a foundation called Everyday Heroes, a non-profit that helped regular people who made a difference in their communities. They saw Jess's story and wanted to do something special. We want to invest in you, the woman on the phone told her. We're starting a new initiative, helping people like you turn kindness into action. We'd love for you to be our first partner. Jess didn't speak for a moment. Me, she finally asked. Yes, the woman said. You showed the world that even the smallest acts of kindness matter. Now we want to help you build something with that. Jess felt tears welling up again. She had spent years feeling stuck, like she was just barely getting by, like no one noticed how hard she tried every day. And now people were not only noticing, they were cheering her on. She took a deep breath. Yes, she said. I'd love to. That night, Jess sat outside the diner with a notebook in her lap. The city lights flickered around her, and the air smelled like rain and coffee. She opened the notebook and wrote at the top of the page, "My dream." Underneath it. She started listing ideas: a small cafe, where everyone felt welcome, a place where waitstaff were treated with respect, where customers could sit down and feel like someone cared. She thought about Elena's offer, about the foundation's support, about Stephen Curry's note tucked safely in her drawer. Keep doing what you're doing. Maybe that's exactly what she was doing, building something, becoming someone, not because of the money, not because of the fame, but because she never stopped trying, because she never stopped smiling, even when it hurt. Jess closed the notebook, looked up at the sky, and whispered, "Thank you." Then she stood up, walked back inside, and got back to work. There was still a lot to do, and for the first time in a long time, she couldn't wait to do it. The weeks that followed were a blur. Jess met with the Everyday Heroes team, toured Elena's cafe in New York over video calls, and started planning what her dream place would look like. She filled notebooks with ideas, from the color of the walls to the kind of coffee she wanted to serve. She even sketched out a logo on one page, a smiling sun above a steaming mug. But not everything was easy. With more attention came more pressure. Some people online questioned whether Jess deserved what happened to her. Others said Stephen Curry shouldn't have given her money when there were bigger problems in the world. A few even accused her of staging the whole thing. It hurt. She tried not to read the comments, but sometimes they found her anyway. And when they did, they made her doubt herself. Was she really worth all this? Did she deserve any of it? One night, after a long shift and another round of cruel messages, Jess sat in the diner's break room, staring at the note Curry gave her. "Keep doing what you're doing. You have no idea how many lives you touch. Don't ever stop smiling." She traced the letters with her finger and whispered, "I'm trying." Then she opened her notebook again, and flipped to a new page. At the top she wrote, "Why I keep going." Underneath, she started listing reasons. Because kindness matters, because hard work deserves to be seen, because everyone has a story, because someone once believed in me, and now I have to believe in myself. That night, she decided she wouldn't let the negativity stop her. Instead, she'd use it as fuel. She posted a short video on social media, speaking directly to the camera. "I know not everyone believes my story," she said, "and that's okay. All I can do is be honest about what happened, and hope it helps someone else feel less alone." She talked about the good and the bad, the joy and the pain, the support and the criticism, and something shifted. More people started rooting for her than doubting her. Supporters flooded the comments with words of encouragement. "You're brave just for showing up. Don't let anyone dim your light. We're behind you, Jess." Even Elena sent her a message. "You're doing exactly what you should be doing. Staying true to yourself. That's the most powerful thing of all." Jess saved that message too. As the months passed, things started moving fast. The foundation helped her secure a small loan to start her own cafe. Elena connected her with suppliers and other small business owners who offered advice. Jess even hired her first employee, a fellow waitress from the diner named Mia, who had always dreamed of working in a place where people cared. They found a small space across town. It wasn't fancy, but it had big windows, warm lights, and a view of the city skyline. Jess stood inside, one afternoon, paint cans scattered around her, a brush in her hand, and smiled. This was hers, all of it, the mess, the stress, the beauty. She got to work painting the walls soft yellow, the color of sunlight. Then came the day she never expected. A text lit up her phone. It was from an unknown number. She opened it. "Hey Jess, Just saw your updates. Proud of you. Keep going. Jess stared at the screen. Stephen Curry. He remembered her. He still believed in her. She blinked back tears and whispered, "Thank you." Then she stood up, rolled up her sleeves, and kept painting. Because now she wasn't just building a cafe, she was building a future. One smile at a time. The grand opening of Jess's cafe was a quiet kind of magic. It wasn't a big event with flashing lights or red carpets. No cameras, no reporters, just the soft hum of early morning life in the city, and the smell of fresh paint, warm bread, and brewing coffee. She stood behind the counter that morning, adjusting her apron for the third time in 5 minutes. Her hands were shaking, not from nerves but from something deeper: excitement, fear, hope, all tangled together. Mia was already setting out pastries, humming to herself. "You okay?" she asked, glancing at Jess. Jess nodded, even though her stomach was doing flips. "Yeah, just can't believe this is real." Mia smiled. "It is, and you earned every second of it." The door chimed. Their first customer walked in. An older man with a cane and a newspaper tucked under his arm. He looked around, took in the yellow walls, the wooden tables, the chalkboard menu behind the counter. He gave Jess a small smile. "Smells good in here." Jess returned the smile. "Thanks. Can I get you something?" He ordered black coffee and a blueberry muffin. Jess poured the coffee with steady hands and handed him the cup. "First one's on me," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" She nodded. "It's opening day. I want people to feel welcome." He chuckled. "Well, you're off to a good start." He sat down by the window, unfolded his paper, and took a sip of coffee. Jess watched him for a moment, then turned to Mia. "We did it," she whispered. Mia grinned. "We just got started." As the day went on, more people came in. Some recognized Jess from the news stories. Others had no idea who she was, but they all left with the same thing: a warm drink, a good bite to eat, and the feeling that someone genuinely cared about them. By the end of the week, word had spread. People talked about how friendly the staff was, how clean and cozy the place felt, how the coffee was some of the best in town, and most importantly, how everyone who walked through the door felt like they belonged. Jess made sure of that. She remembered what it was like to feel invisible, to work hard and go unnoticed, to serve others while barely keeping yourself afloat. Now she wanted to be the kind of person who saw others when they felt unseen. She hired more staff, people who had struggled, who had dreams, who needed a chance. She trained them not just in coffee and service, but in kindness, in listening, in making people feel at home. And slowly, the cafe became more than just a place to grab a drink. It became a part of the neighborhood, a place where students studied late into the night, where tired workers stopped after long shifts, where lonely people came to sit and talk to someone who would actually listen. One afternoon, a teenage girl walked in alone. She looked nervous, like she didn't quite belong anywhere. Jess greeted her with a smile. "Hey there, what can I get you?" The girl hesitated. "Just hot chocolate, please." Jess nodded and made it herself, adding extra whipped cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon. When she handed it over, she said, "Here. First one's always free if you need it." The girl blinked. "Really?" Jess smiled. "This place is for everyone, even if you're just passing through." The girl sat down at a corner table and pulled out a notebook. She started writing furiously, sipping her drink between pages. Jess watched her from behind the counter. She remembered being that age, feeling lost, wondering if she'd ever find her path. Maybe this girl was still figuring things out too, but now she had a place to do it, a safe space, a little warmth in a cold world. That was enough. Later that evening, as Jess locked up and stepped outside, the city lights flickered above her. She looked up at the sign above the door, Sunrise Cafe. It was simple, honest, hopeful. She smiled. Then she pulled out her phone and sent a message to Elena. "We opened today. It feels real now." Elena replied almost instantly. "I knew you could do it. Proud of you, Jess." Jess tucked her phone away and started walking home. She passed a bench where a woman sat alone, wrapped in a thin jacket, holding a paper cup of coffee. Jess stopped. "You want a better one?" she asked. Mine's stronger. The woman looked surprised but nodded. Jess walked back inside, grabbed a fresh cup and handed it to her. No charge, she said. Take care. The woman smiled. Thank you. Jess kept walking, hands in her pockets, heart full. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, she wasn't perfect, but she was trying, every single day, and somehow that was enough. Jess got into a rhythm after the cafe opened. She woke up early every morning, brewed a pot of coffee before heading in, and unlocked the doors just as the sun started to rise over the city. The smell of fresh beans filled the space almost instantly, mixing with the warm scent of pastries coming out of the oven. Maya was usually already there, setting up behind the counter or rearranging the display case. She'd hum along to whatever song was playing through the speakers, barely looking up when Jess walked in. You're late, Maya teased one morning. Jess rolled her eyes. By 2 minutes. Still counts. Jess smiled and tied on her apron. Any big plans today? Maya grinned. Just serving people who need a little kindness. Same as always. That became their motto. Not written on any sign or menu, but lived in every interaction they had with customers. People came in tired, stressed, lost in their own problems. They left with more than just food. They left feeling seen. One afternoon, a man walked in looking like he hadn't slept in days. He ordered black coffee and sat at the bar, staring off into space. Jess didn't rush him. She let him sit, watched him from across the counter. After a while, he looked up. You don't get many days like this, do you? Jess tilted her head. Days like what? Where everything feels heavy. Jess nodded slowly. I know that feeling. He took a sip of his coffee and sighed. My wife passed last month. Jess's heart dropped. I'm so sorry. He gave a small nod. It's hard. People say time helps, but it doesn't feel like it yet. Jess walked around the counter and sat beside him. Would you like another cup? On me. He smiled faintly. You don't have to do that. I know, she said, but I want to. He accepted the new cup and sipped it quietly for a few minutes. Then he looked at her again. This place is nice, he said. Feels like somewhere she would have liked. Jess smiled. Then I'm glad you found it. They talked a little longer. Not about anything big, just life, memories, things that made them smile even through the sadness. When he finished his coffee, he stood up, thanked her, and left without saying much else. But Jess knew he'd come in carrying something heavy, and for a few minutes, he didn't have to carry it alone. As weeks turned into months, the cafe grew. More people came, more stories were shared, more lives touched by something as simple as a warm drink and a kind word. Jess hired more staff, trained them the same way she trained herself, with patience, care, and the belief that even small actions could change someone's day. One of her newest hires was a young man named Tyler. He was quiet at first, always keeping to himself, but worked hard and never missed a shift. One night after closing, Jess caught him sitting outside on the bench, staring at his phone. She stepped outside and sat beside him. Rough day? Tyler exhaled. Something like that. Jess waited. After a moment he spoke. I used to work at a gas station, got fired for stealing. Jess didn't react the way he expected. She just nodded. What did you steal? He hesitated. A sandwich. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. Jess stayed quiet for a second, then said, I've been there. Tyler looked surprised. You have? She nodded. Before all this, I was working 60-hour weeks and still barely making rent. Some nights I went to bed hungry. Some mornings I skipped breakfast just to afford gas for work. Tyler looked down at his hands. I don't want to be that guy forever. Jess smiled. You're not. You showed up here. That means something. He looked at her. Why did you hire me? Jess shrugged. Because everyone deserves a second chance, and because I see something in you. Tyler blinked. Really? Yeah, Jess said. You show up. You listen, you care. That's more than most people bring to a job. Tyler swallowed hard. Thank you. Jess patted his shoulder. Don't thank me yet. You still gotta earn your tips. He laughed, and for the first time since he started, Jess saw him truly relax. One evening, just before closing, A woman walked in holding a bouquet of flowers. Jess recognized her immediately. It was Elena. Jess's eyes widened. "You came." Elena smiled. "Of course I did. I wanted to see where my favorite waitress turned cafe owner built her dream." Jess rushed around the counter and hugged her tightly. They talked for hours. Elena walked around the space, complimented the layout, the lighting, the menu. "This is beautiful, Jess," she said. "You did good." Jess smiled. "I had help." Elena shook her head. "No, this is all you." Jess felt tears welling up. "I wouldn't have gotten here without people like you believing in me." Elena gave her a soft look. "You believed in yourself first. That's what matters." They sat at a corner table, drinking coffee and catching up, talking about the future, about how Jess could expand if she ever wanted to, about how kindness wasn't just a business strategy, it was a movement. And Jess realized something. This wasn't just a cafe anymore. It was a message, a reminder that no matter how hard life gets, there are people who care, people who see you, people who believe in you, even when you forget to believe in yourself. Jess started getting messages from people all over the country. Some were waiters and waitresses who said they saw themselves in her story. Others were students, single parents, small business owners, all of them fighting to make it through each day with a smile on their face. One message came from a girl named Lily. She wrote, "Hey Jess, I'm 17 and work at a diner after school. Some days are rough, tips are bad, customers are rude, but I keep showing up because I want something better. Your story reminded me that even if no one else sees it, I'm doing something important. Thank you for giving me hope." Lily. Jess read the message twice, then replied right away. "Lily, you're doing more than you think. Every time you show up, every time you smile, every time you try, you're building something. Don't ever stop. You're not alone." Jess. She printed the message out and pinned it to the wall behind the counter. A reminder that this place wasn't just about coffee or pastries. It was about connection, about hope, about proving that kindness doesn't disappear just because life gets hard. One morning, Jess got an email from a local high school. They wanted to invite her to speak to students about perseverance, hard work and following your dreams. Jess stared at the screen for a long time before replying. She had never seen herself as someone worth listening to. She wasn't a CEO. She wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't a motivational speaker. But maybe that was the point. Maybe kids needed to hear from someone real, someone who had struggled, someone who had failed, someone who had kept going anyway. She accepted the invitation. The day of the talk, she stood backstage, clutching her notes so tightly her knuckles turned white. Mia gave her a thumbs up. "You've got this." Jess nodded, took a deep breath, and walked onto the stage. A sea of students looked back at her. Some sat slouched in their chairs, others leaned forward, curious. Jess smiled. "Hi," she said. "My name is Jess, and I used to be a waitress." A few kids chuckled. Jess continued. "I didn't grow up rich. I didn't have connections. I worked long hours, barely made ends meet, and sometimes cried in the break room after a tough shift." She paused. "But I kept showing up. I kept trying. I believed that one day, things would get better." She talked about Stephen Curry, about the note, about the check, about how one moment changed everything. Then she told them what happened after, how she opened the cafe, how she hired people who needed a second chance, how she built something from scratch. And finally she said, "You don't need a viral moment to matter. You don't need someone famous to hand you money to prove your worth. What matters is what you do every single day. The way you treat people, the way you show up, the way you keep going, even when it's hard." She looked around the room. "You already have everything you need inside you. You just have to believe it." Silence, then applause, lots of it. As she stepped off the stage, a group of students rushed up to talk. One boy asked, "What did it feel like when he handed you the check?" Jess smiled. "Honestly, terrifying. I thought I was dreaming." Another student asked, "Did you ever doubt yourself?" Jess nodded. "Every day, still do sometimes, but I remind myself why I started. That helps me keep going." After the event, Jess got another message from Lily. I was there today. You were amazing. Thank you for being real. Jess typed back. That's all I can be. And that's enough. Months passed. The cafe stayed busy. Jess kept hiring people who needed a shot. She partnered with local schools to offer job training programs for teens. She donated leftover food to shelters. She created a scholarship fund for young workers who wanted to go to college but couldn't afford it. And somehow, through it all, she still found time to serve coffee, wipe tables, and chat with regulars. One rainy afternoon, she was behind the counter when the bell above the door chimed again. She looked up, and there he was, Stephen Curry. Jess froze. He looked the same, hoodie, sunglasses, quiet confidence, just like the first time he walked into the diner. She blinked. Is this real? Curry smiled. Hope so. I heard you opened a place, wanted to see it for myself. Jess felt tears well up instantly. You didn't have to do that. He shrugged. I wanted to. Jess walked around the counter and gave him a quick hug. Thank you for everything. He pulled back and smiled. You did all the work, Jess. I just gave you a push. She led him to a table near the window. He ordered his usual pancakes, eggs, bacon. Jess made sure it was perfect. As he ate, he looked around the space, watched the staff interact with customers, watched people come in tired and leave smiling. He turned back to Jess. You built something special here. Jess nodded. I tried. He smiled. You succeeded. Jess swallowed hard. I wouldn't have gotten here without you. Curry shook his head. You would have gotten here anyway. I just helped you get there faster. Jess wiped a tear before it could fall. Still thank you. Curry reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. Just like last time. Jess's heart pounded. He handed it to her. She unfolded it slowly. Jess, you kept doing what you were doing, and look where it brought you. Never stop. SC. Jess closed her eyes. When she opened them, she whispered, I won't. Curry smiled. Good. He finished his meal, left a generous tip, and stood up to go. Jess walked him to the door. Before stepping outside, he turned to her one last time. Keep going, he said. Jess nodded. I will. And with that he walked out into the rain. Jess watched him go, then turned back to the cafe, to the people laughing and talking, to the staff working hard behind the counter, to the future she built with her own hands. She smiled, and she kept going.